right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We will do our usual, and Mike will give an opening statement, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, it's just good to see everybody back. Last time we were all together, many time zones away ago. Bye came at a good time for us after playing 6 games. Gave us a chance to rest up. We were pretty beat up after the Cal game, so to heal the guys that were playing, potentially get some guys back that have not been playing, and then to get a jump on preparation for Georgia Tech. They're, the job that Brent and his staff do down there is as good as anybody in the league. They're extraordinarily difficult to prepare for on offense with everything with the quarterback running game and how well they run the football in general. And then defensively with Blake Gideon, who I got the chance to spend time with at Texas as their defensive coordinator. They're very multiple on defense. A lot of different pressures, a lot of different coverages, fronts. So it's a lot. So to have a little bit of extra time, I think, has been a bonus for our guys. We're able to give the guys a couple days off. This is also fall break at Duke, so alters our schedule a little bit. We actually practiced this morning as opposed to our normal Sunday practice, Monday off. So all that with a chance to have a big-time atmosphere, a big-time game here on campus on Saturday. We're looking forward to a national TV audience and putting our best game to date for everyone to see. So with that, let's do questions.
Is there any update on Trey Freeman?
Yeah, Trey and Kendall both have a chance to feature this weekend. I would say they're in the, I know we get into injury reports later in the week, but they're somewhere in the probable to questionable to hopeful range. So we'd be excited to see them both. Yes.
Fingers crossed.
That's not the ACC doesn't put that as one of the choices. Fingers crossed. So unfortunately.
Against a quarterback like Haynes King, it'd be important. It seems like they have experienced linebackers, even though your young guys played well.
Well, it's twofold. It's not just Haynes. It's what Buster Faulkner does pre-snap. The way that they dress up their plays that they run, and the one certainty is how they did it last week is not the way they're going to present it to you this week. So it's very, whether you're a young linebacker or an older linebacker, safety, whatever, it's just very jarring that what you practice against all week, you're really not going to see. You might see the same play, right? But the presentation, and there's going to be a wide out in the backfield, and he vanishes, and the high frequency of pre-snap motion and shifting. So you're just trying to prepare them as good as they can to understand what their rules are, right? Because, again, if you're beat before the snap, which we were often in the game a year ago in Atlanta, you really have no chance post-snap. And so you have to kind of win both of those battles.
Manny, to elaborate further on that, they basically have 3 backs that have gone for about 400 yards. There's only 3 sacks against them this year. So you kind of know what they're going to do on offense. At the same time, your defensive players, they can be great against the pass, but in this game they have to adjust to the run. What kind of difficulty does that present to you as a coach to adjust your defenders to just play that kind of ball? I mean, what do you have to do as far as getting the right guys on the field?
Yeah, well, I think you follow your normal rules, right? I mean, there's not a defensive scheme where you're not sound versus the run and you're not ready to defend the run. Their numbers are the way the numbers are because of their commitment to run the football. They'll run it on second and long. They'll run it on third down. And so you just can never get tired of stopping the run. And and you have to stay patient. What will happen is they'll go on long drives, and you can lose your patience as a play caller. You can lose your patience as a player. And what ends up happening, because run defense more than anything is just about discipline. You got to get your numbers right, and you got to stay disciplined to be where you're supposed to be. And in those series, guys can lose their discipline and get their eyes in the wrong place. And then teams that are great running the football and I think their yards per completion are one of the highest in the country, which makes sense because what happens is when they do throw it, they can throw for big shots because you're so worried about stopping the run. But it's just eyes. Your eye discipline takes you. Your run key is your pass key. So it's not like you're trying to flip a switch on defense and you're pressing like the Tecmo Bowl, stop the run button and then the stop the pass button. You're trying to get that right. It's just ideally you have the same button.
Going back to the Cal game, what did your defense do in the last 40 minutes of the game that it didn't do in the first 20?
So weirdly, they did do it in the first 20. And what we were saying is we were stopping the run, and been doing this a long time. And that was really the battle cry in between series is that if they can't run the football, they're going to lose the football game. And the reason is because the quarterback came out on fire. But in my career, there have not been very many quarterbacks that can do that for 4 quarters. And if you got to drop back and do it, we're going to get you. And we started hitting him, and he started making poor decisions, and he started throwing us the football, and that's what turned the game. So it's easy to sit there and say, oh, my gosh, we have – and there were some things we got better in terms of coverage, but it's easy to sit there and say, oh, man, let's scrap the plan. Let's try to slow this quarterback down. And we actually went the opposite route. We said they cannot run the football on us. And if they – and because our guys felt coming off in those first 20 minutes that we were winning the battle up front. We knew they were having a hard time protecting us. We just weren't getting the quarterback off the first look. And then sooner or later, like I said, he held on to the ball, and however many sacks we had, and not to mention how many pressures and knockdowns, and that leads into turnovers. I keep telling everybody there's a methodology of how you create turnovers. And the first thing, and that's why it's such a big thing this weekend, is you got to be able to stop the run. And this is a team that's not going to let you stop. Like some teams don't really want to run the football, so they'll kind of, if once you show you can stop it, they'll get the passing game, which is a little bit what happened versus Cal. This team they'll run the football no matter what. So, like I said, it's just a battle of will.
When you have your offense is in such a rhythm over a several game period, what happens then when it goes into an off week? Do you have to find different ways to keep them in rhythm throughout the long stretches?
Yeah, but that's always the thing with buys, right? You have to stay sharp, timing in the passing game, those type things, and I think that really just comes down to maintaining a standard. It's what we talked about last week. There's no such thing as a bye week standard, right? We drop back and throw the ball. It doesn't matter whether it's in the fourth quarter of a game or if it's period 4 of a practice. It should be done at a Duke standard. So, but that's always something you try to get the guys revved up and keep that same type of crispness. But it's just that's the nature of the beast when you take a week off.
When you have a true freshman playing for you, you never know quite how much they'll contribute or when they'll contribute. Some of the guys on defense, especially Elliott, who I don't know if he was fueled on adrenaline or always that fast, but he was all over the place.
He's been that fast since he came to Duke. I don't know if he was that fast when he was like 5 years old, but Elliott can run, and Elliott has great instincts. And so even in the Syracuse game when he got in there, you could just sense that it wasn't too much for him. And in the Cal game, it just so happened that a couple of the ways that he was being used on third down because of the injuries, that's the irony, he probably wouldn't have been in there, allowed him to showcase his speed. We know where we had some quarterback spy stuff where he could run the guy down and show his ability. So we saw that, when he came in spring ball, that he had really good instincts, and we knew he was fast. To me, the question was just the development of his body and just getting big and strong enough to be a middle linebacker in this conference. But but they obviously they coach him well down there at Austin Westlake, and he was prepared, and it's fun to see those guys make plays and as their role increases.
How about your other freshman?
Gompers,
Other freshman, yeah.
or just in general. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that we didn't get to see more of Gompers versus Cal. But if you're watching, what Pelachata did, he's just getting better and better every week. Bryce Davis, continues to factor in. We said that this recruiting class was really, really talented, and I think they're showing that to be the case. And there are others that we feel really good about in terms of the future of the program that just aren't playing because, again, they just have guys ahead of them. We wouldn't have probably known about Shopper and Gompers this year because of the experience we had at linebacker. It's just when the injuries came that those guys had a chance to shine.
Coach, it seems like all the transfers you guys have brought in have solidified their roles pretty nicely so far, which is not always the story you see across college football. What do you attribute that to, and how do you connect that to your selective approach to the portal?
I think it's twofold. I think, one, I think our personnel staff, led by John Garrett, and our coaching staff are really aligned in terms of what we're looking for and how we think those guys would fit in. And then I do think there's an element of the people who are either attracted to Duke because what we can offer academically for guys, maybe let's say they're grad transfers, and then also that you would just have to have the academic profile to get into Duke, right? And so there's a certain thing that comes along with that, and that thing really bonds well in our locker room. So not only, as you mentioned, do they have the talent that you can see that's now producing for us on the football field, but they've got the right DNA that they immediately become one of us and they fit in the locker room really, really well. And that's the most important thing because, as you do see in college ball now, you bring in transfers that could disrupt, the apple cart, right? And morale is so important. And we have been, like I said, I feel like we've hit on every one we took this past year, and all those guys are really contributing for us.
Manny, I know you work for James Franklin. Just obviously to be fired mid-season is kind of a startling thing. Just your thoughts on him and just maybe the nature of college football where anybody can get fired at any time.
Well, yeah, it's fascinating you say that. First of all, I just thinking a lot about the guys up there in State College, staff and players. A lot of the coaches that are there that I work with. All the guys on the defense staff were all still there. I know how hard they work. I know how hard James worked. I know no one cared more about getting Penn State to the top than James Franklin did. It does say a lot about where we are in college football right now, that 3 weeks ago, that they could be number 2 in the country. 16 days ago, they were leading the number 2 team in the country or whatever in overtime, or top 3 team, whatever they were. And this is going to happen more. I don't know. I don't know that we're fully aware of how our sport is changing as rapidly as it's changing. You can't build these massive conferences. Like, we're just going to lose games more. It's just what's going to happen. We're talking about in our conference about having, scheduling, sort of tiered towards who finishes at the top. It's common sense. The more you put people at the top, and they're going to play each other, someone's going to lose the game. It's just going to happen. Last night in the National Football League, the Detroit Lions played the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs won to go to 3-3, right? And no one thinks that Andy Reid's not a good coach, and no one thinks Dan Campbell's not a good coach because they've only won, 4 out of their first 6, and they're in second place. It's just, but that's why they have a big thing at the end of the year called the playoff, which is what we're getting to, right? So I think we're in a strange place in this sport. Because if you can have a bad 3 weeks and it can go like that quickly, it just lets everybody know we're not where we used to be. But there's another aspect to this as well. I think the other thing that showed up this weekend is, what you saw in Eugene, Oregon, where if you have a university that is aligned from top to bottom that wants to play championship football, you can have a championship football program anywhere. Doesn't mean win a championship, because everybody wants to win a championship, but you can compete for championships anywhere now. The landscape has changed, and there are legacy brands who believe that you still have to go to a legacy brand, and that's the only place that it can happen. And that for a long time was true. I don't believe that that's true anymore, and I think there's a lot of evidence. And I'll tell you, this team that's coming here this Saturday, they're a 2-point conversion away from having won in Athens, Georgia. They would have the longest winning streak in the country. They'd probably be ranked in the top 5, having taken down Georgia, Miami, Vanderbilt, Clemson, all in that time frame, right? But no one sees it yet, right? And it's strange how we don't really see what's quite exactly happening, because I think we still get stuck on logos on the side of helmets. I just do. So that's why we're excited to play. I think there's a big-time team coming in here this weekend, and all the evidence of what they've done on film suggests that. And I just think it's great for our people here, our fans, to see, two major programs getting after it.
Almost inevitably, your name has already popped up as a possible candidate. How do you handle things like that when you're not going to stop it these days?
Because I've already been through it. Look, there's 3 things you go through when you're a coach. You're in the honeymoon phase, you're in the please don't leave phase, and you're in the please leave now phase. Right, and what I just told you is it can change in 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, we were 1-2, right? And that's what I told the team. I said, once you start getting into what's happening then and what happened next and that, you are going to get beat that weekend you play. College football is preparation and mindset, and so I think that's the whole key. I think that's you have got to be present of where you are, and the second you start thinking about what's next, you're about to get it.
Some people always see an advantage for having a bye before, but you also have a bye after. This helps you guys concentrate on the goal at hand. You're always, next game is the most important game, but these are 20-year-old kids.
No, that's a very unusual thing. I know there's 3 teams in our league that have had the bye game bye. I don't know if I've ever even heard of it until this season. I might just be one of the things of having a 17-team league or however it happens. So we'll handle it when we get there. We have to do what we have to do. You get better by playing the game. I think byes come, like I mentioned, this one came at a good time where we get some guys healthy again. We've got to maintain our sharpness throughout the year. So that'll be the challenge when we get to that. But like I said, we'll handle Georgia Tech, and then we'll try to beat by number 2 next week.
Any update on Terry Moore's recovery?
Same deal. I mean, all he's doing is just every week just hitting different benchmarks in terms of his, return to play protocol. So, but nothing to update you on that.
Anybody else for coach?
You had a noon kickoff earlier this year, and this is your second noon kickoff. Did your team learn anything about preparation for an early kickoff like that?
We played Syracuse at noon and played pretty good in that one. You know what I mean? Like, so I just we're a morning practice team, so we played at 10:30 at night last week. So we'll play whenever they tell us to show up. So.
Is there anything you can update with Peyton Jones? He played in the first 4 and hasn't played in the last 2.
Just again, the rotation kind of is what it is, you know what I mean? And so Peyton's sort of on standby, doing a good job helping us in practice. But right now, with the way that the three and getting Jaquez some big runs back at Cal, I thought was great for everybody to see. And that's just right now, it's hard to get more guys than that in the game.
Is a 4-game redshirt a possibility for him?
Maybe, you know what I mean? But you can never, like I said, you can never guarantee because, you could have, changes the position. So.
Manny, you've coached with and against a lot of good mobile quarterbacks over the years. Is there anybody that Haynes King reminds you of? And his level of toughness and physicality is sort of different than just a mobile quarterback?
The physicality and toughness part, I think the comparison I would always have is like Colin Klein at K-State, his great Bill Snyder offenses. But he's so much faster than Colin was. And his, he's got those long legs, long stride, you know what I mean? And then he's got a couple moves where he's able to make people miss in the open, which is normally when you think of really long, tall guys like that, they're not very agile, and he's very agile. He's just a very, very good athlete. But then to be as long as he is and to be able to not allow his body to get into compromised positions when they do run him inside and off tackle as much as they do it's quite a feat. He's an elite athlete, and so they do a good job of putting him in positions to when they need to have it, when they're in critical situations. Everyone knows he's going to have the ball, and it's still hard to stop.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good luck.
Thank you.